Okay. The idea that you're going to have disordered riots on the street and you're like, if Walls had just let them go on, he would be a better candidate. It's just like, what are you talking about? This is what happens when you're an anarchist. Anarchist brain is, there was a riot 4 years ago and he didn't let the riot go on longer. I agreed with the rioters, therefore the riot should have gone on longer. And it's like, that's why anarchist praxis doesn't work. Do you understand? Like the George Floyd riots prove it, because all that energy, all that anger, all that righteousness, where did it go? Did it build up an organization? Was there an organization that could go to the National Guardsmen and say, hey, join our lines? What do people think about what I just said? The idea of your left-wing movement being able to convince National Guardsmen that you're on the right side to join your side. Do you know anarchists that would support that idea in and of itself? Or they say, I don't want to be any movement that has a National Guardsman in it. It was rudderless. You know, a lot of people argued in favor of that leaderless movement. We should have a leaderless movement. We shouldn't be trying to figure out who's at these protests. And it turned out that a lot of the burning was done by libertarian boogaloo boys that were trying to cause a race war. So like this is what happens when you have a movement that doesn't have any kind of ideological or structural organization, which is understandable. We can analyze riots and say why riots occur, but the idea that, oh, well, you know, Tim Walz didn't let these riots. There isn't a single politician in America that would have let the riots go on. That's silly talk. There's a really good Marxist analysis book and podcast called Laundering Black Rage about how all the 2020 movements and riots achieved is an increase in police funding, defense spending, and more black men being killed, sadly. Actually, there's one place where they did achieve more. It is called Minnesota under Tim Walz. Now, it doesn't mean that they did enough. Of course they didn't. We need a national police reform bill. But like the idea that, you know, I'm supposed to sit back and go, yeah, you know, if only the riots had gone on longer. For what end? For what organization? For what revolutionary party? For what? What are you talking about? Just because there's disorder doesn't mean it actually has any kind of purpose. There's disorder after, you know, the Super Bowl. You know, cities oftentimes have riots after they win the Super Bowl or lose the Super Bowl. Should we just let them go on? If only the riots had been allowed to go on in Minneapolis, we would have had socialism. Like, what are you even trying to say? One thing Matt Christman would talk about and have focus on his streams and Chapa was the defecting of army personnel in Real Revolution's coup, whatever that was, whether that was a positive or negative. That was it's obviously a positive. They're the guys with the guns. If the guys with the guns are pointing at you, you're dead. Your movement dies. You get scattered. You get washed over with blood. People don't want to run out onto the streets and get shot. They'll hide in their homes. So yeah, any kind of movement that wants to be a revolution has to have the military defecting to its side, especially the guys that are like physically on the street. And that's why the Russian Revolution and the Chinese Revolution won, because they were alliances between peasants, workers, and the military, defecting military. They had a martial element. They were not pacifistic. They were not anarchist. So there's this tendency among anarchist movements when they get swept aside by the military to be like, the military's bad. And it's like, yeah, the military as an organization exists to enforce a monopoly on violence for society. So how do you take control of a state? You subvert that monopoly on violence, and then you control the monopoly on violence. If your side has the monopoly on violence, you're winning. Right now, the bourgeois do. Your goal should be for the proletariat to have a monopoly on violence. If you don't have that as a goal, then it's silly talk.